Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Starting Out Solitary. This is week 263. Blind Rob here. And yes, I know I am super late with this video yet again. Week late, actually. I swear I'm getting worse with this habit of not getting videos up on time. I do apologize about that. Things like I've said in the past, things have just been kind of weird on my end. It makes it a little difficult to make videos. One of the reasons why I haven't uploaded anything in the past week or so, my own channel. So go figure. Anyway, this week we are talking about scrying, which is a fabulous topic. And the funny thing is, when I heard that we were talking about this particular topic this week, I decided to get my bard on a little bit because I am a major word nerd at heart. And I decided to look up the etymology of scry or scrying, as it were. And, as you would think, the meanings, they're not the etymology, but, for the meanings of scrying, is fortune telling, specifically with a crystal ball or some kind of reflective surface, or with some kind of device, usually of a reflective surface, usually of a visual kind. But when you dig deeper, at least when I dug deeper, etymological wise, found out that the word comes to us via, from English, Middle English, as well as Old French, and from Old French all the way back to at least Proto-Germanic language and Frankish language. So it's kind of interesting, the history. And the really interesting thing is that when you look at the Old French and the Proto-Germanic word that is the origin, or is the proto form of what we know as scrying, or what evolved to eventually become scry or scrying in our language. The Old French word, the Proto-Germanic word, means something to the effect of to cry out, to yell, to scream. So I find that really interesting, the transition between the meanings, how that evolves from Proto-Germanic, and Old French all the way back down to where we are right now, which is, English. And also to keep in perspective with scrying, because when you scry, you are gaining information, you're gaining wisdom, you're gaining insight, and, more likely than not, especially if you're doing it for someone else, you're going to want to tell them about it. It's like, hey, this happened, this go on. Especially if you're reading for a client or for a friend or what have you. So I just thought that I would mention that, and if I can remind myself when I go to upload this video, I will try to post some of the information that I found digging in the etymological information for this word, all of which can be found on Wiktionary, if I remember correctly. So anyway, as far as scrying goes, some of you watching this video and who know a little bit about me may be pondering, does Rob do scrying? Is, him, being blind, or in my actual case, mostly blind. Like, I can still see some, but my field of vision is fairly limited these days. Yes, kinda. Yes, no, kinda, maybe, to some extent. My ability to scry is kind of limited, because my ability to see liquids, or to see any kind of reflection in liquids or in mirrors, I can still do it. Like, if I'm at the bathroom and I got enough lighting and I look in a mirror, I can still see my face for the most part. So whether or not that would translate how well that would translate into, say, like a black mirror, I have no idea. It is something that I've been meaning to look into at some point. And I used to have a shallow bowl made from obsidian, if I remember correct. Unfortunately, that bowl got broken, but I used to scry with it, and back in the day, of course, I was still heavily visually impaired back then, but I had a little bit more sight, a lot more to my field of vision than I do now. Let's say this was back in like 2011, 2012 2013, something like that. So a few years ago. And I could kind of scry in it, but I never really got the, the techniques down or anything of that nature. So at this point, the only real scrying that I know I can do without any problem is fire scrying. Now, keep in mind, I'm more likely to divine with other methods, more so than I am with scrying. Part of my problem with scrying in of itself, at the very heart of the nature of scrying, is that I'm gifted with the second sight. It's a innate ability that comes down through my family from a couple different places. Several members of my family have some version of it. I have a touch of it. I know one of my sisters has a touch of it. And the way that it expresses itself in my situation is that it's always on. I'm always engaged in it. So I'm always getting some sort of otherworldly / spiritual visual feedback. So kind of trying to disengage what I'm, all that stimulus, otherworldly stimulus that I'm receiving in order to scry is a little difficult. Sometimes it can be done, but it's kind of hard. So far, the only method that I've found that works more or less as well as it can be, I suppose, is fire scrying. The thing with fire scrying, especially when you're mostly blind, is that you got to be super cautious and super safe with it, because there's so many ways that can go wrong. But I have done it. Especially, I most of the time I will incorporate flame scrying, fire scrying, when I'm doing a flame tending ritual or service for breach. And that's most of the time I will do I'll scry via flame, and I will also use a form of divination involving the candle wax. How does my attending breach's flame in that session, how does it transfer, how does it relate into the wax, what kind of messages can it give me, and that has been an interesting addition to my personal practice. It's enhanced my practice in some ways, because it's like, well, I come out of a session where I'm flame tending for breach, and it's like, well, I could grab one of my divination sets and I could try to divine whether or not this session turned out all right. But if I just look at the wax and decipher it by the directions of where the markings, or where the wax has deformed and reformed and hardened into place after melting a bit here and there, and working my brain, well, how can I compare that to certain pieces of lore? Because there are some pieces of Irish lore that refers to directions. Different directions have several spiritual meanings, like what we would consider as north, or the left-hand side, is very much harm, conflict, bad luck, ill omen, that kind of thing. The east is the future. It's before us. It's always before us. The west is the past. It's your ancestors, those who reach out from you from behind, from those who came before you, so on and so forth. And I've also found that combining that with any sort of flame scry I might be doing as part of my tending breach's flame allows me to go, okay, so I might have got something from the flame scrying, but am I correct what I got there? Like, am I confident about that? I don't know. So yeah, it's scrying is a bit difficult for me. I do know that at some point I want to sit down and try to get my hands on another obsidian bowl or something similar and try to see if I can water scry still, since it's been years since I've done anything like that. And I also want to get my hands on a black mirror at some point to see if I can do anything with that. Of course, there's got to be some kind of lighting, be it from a flame or from lighting from my room or something of that nature, in order for me to see anything. Because one of the interesting aspects about my particular eye condition is that I'm super light sensitive, and I can't see at all if I don't got any kind of light. So, and being able to see light and see things because of light will be the one thing that will continue to be something that I can see fairly well, even as the rest of my vision degenerates as I get older and my condition progresses. Now, I do have a crystal ball, I do have a crystal spear, but I do not utilize it for scrying. And I know that might come a little weird for some people, but if any of you watching this video watch my one of my more recent videos here on the channel when we were talking about crystals, crystals we don't want to work with, crystals that we recommend, stuff like that. I don't work well with tumbled crystals at all. I can get some kind of connection. I can work with some kind of, with raw crystals, rough crystals. But I do have a crystal spear, and it is smoky quartz, and I can use it for different things. I do use it for divination, and I do use it for energy work. But I don't use it for scrying, and I know that may kind of sound weird, but how I utilize my crystal spear is that it's an aid for when I do trance working, and it's an aid when I use my second sight, especially if I'm trying to focus on something. If I'm in a situation where there are so many things going on, I'm seeing so much, which does happen a lot on occasion, where I'll get so many images, or so many things flashing before me. I'm picking up so much otherworldly visual feedback, stimuli, and I'm unable to focus. Holding on to, feeding my energy into my smoky quartz spear, which I have blood bounded to myself, allows me to focus, to ground, to slow things down so that I can look at things at my own pace, look at each detail the way I want it to, so that I can get as much detail on every little angle, every little thing that's going on, so I can get a better understanding of the situation, both from the individual pieces as well as the big picture as a whole. So that's how I utilize my crystal spear as opposed to scrying. Yeah. Do I have anything else I want to say on the topic? No, I think that's pretty much it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you're doing well. May Breach bless and Loki guide you. Until next time, take care.